What's up everybody? So, as many of you guys have probably heard by now, there are a bunch of rumors going around that Mega Evolutions will be coming back for the Gen 4 remakes Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, personally, I'm not totally convinced that they are returning, but that isn't the point of this video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 10 Pokemon that I think should get Megas in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And before we get started, I will also be discussing the rough designs that I think would be pretty interesting for them. And honestly, if Megas were to return, I'm pretty sure more Pokemon will end up getting Megas anyways, since they added 18 new ones in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So with that being said, let's get started at number 10. Alright, so obviously we have to kick it off with the starters: Infernape, Empoleon, and Torterra. Personally, if they were to make Mega Evolutions for them, I would prefer if they went deeper into Infernape's inspiration of Sun Wukong and gave him a bow staff to use and even had him float around on a little cloud. And possibly even mess with the typing a little bit, though I think that fire and fighting would be perfectly fine. For Empoleon, I would love for him to look even more like the King of the Ocean, and honestly, ever since I saw this fan-made picture of G-Max Empoleon, I have been absolutely in love with the idea for it. So, if we were to take that and turn it into a Mega Evolution instead, I would be totally happy. Now, for Torterra. Honestly, I don't want it to get the same treatment that Venusaur did by giving it bigger trees and a mountain on its back. So personally, I think the best thing for it would be to make it look more like an Ankylosaurus. Just give it some armor and a spiky tail and just drop the ground type for steel. And if anything, just please mess with the typing just a little bit. Since it's the continent Pokemon, there could be a million different things that you could do with it. It could even be Camerupt 2.0. Make the mountain on its back a volcano and drop the grass typing for fire, and if not, just do something interesting. Next up is number 9, which is Staraptor. Now, before anybody says anything, if Pidgeot can get one, I think that another regional bird that deserves it more than any other would be Staraptor. And honestly, I did try to come up with a really good idea for it, but I found a picture of this Mega Evolution for it, which looks way better than the idea that I had originally, so here you go. Next up is number 8. Another Pokemon that I want desperately to get their own Mega is my second favorite Pokemon of all time, which is Luxray. Now, if you're new to my channel and you haven't seen this particular video yet, I'm a huge advocate for Luxray being a dark type, and I think if Luxray got a Mega Evolution, it would be the perfect way to get everybody who wants this Pokemon to be dark type to shut up. And I think a cool design for Luxray would be to commit to some of the inspiration behind it, the saber-toothed tiger. And since there has yet to be a saber-toothed Pokemon, I think messing around with this idea would be pretty sick. Number 7 is Roserade. My ideas for this one are a tiny bit out there, so bear with me real quick. While looking into the inspiration behind Roserade, I saw that it's all based around deception and masquerading, and maybe even a tiny bit of fairy inspiration, given that Roserade's family is in the fairy egg group. I thought that an interesting idea is maybe the reason why Roserade is into masquerading and deception is because she is secretly an evil queen. So now this is where it gets a little complicated. My idea for Mega Roserade is that the flowers on her hands are based on the Helleborus, and they aren't in bloom yet, so in the Mega they finally bloom. And she would also drop the mask so we can finally see what Roserade looks like underneath. And she could even maybe develop a dress to make her look more like royalty, not as intensely as Mega Gardevoir's dress, but close enough to where you get the sense of it, but also enough to justify it dropping the grass typing for fairy, so it becomes the first fairy and poison type. Next up, number 6, which is Yanmega. Now, ever since I was a little kid, I have always been a tiny bit upset that Yanmega wasn't a dragon-type Pokemon, and honestly, now that there's a possibility that it finally can be, I can't think of any bug-type Pokemon that would deserve becoming dragon more. So, if anything, Yanmega should be able to do the honors. Now, my next pick would be Garchomp and Lucario, but obviously, they already have their own Megas, so I decided to go outside of the Gen 4 Pokedex for these next few, but don't worry, the last spot is saved for some very important Pokemon. And I figured since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire introduced Diance's Mega, this isn't entirely impossible, it's just more of whether or not they will actually end up being in the game. Which, since newer Gen Pokemon were in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I'm willing to bet that Gen 5 through Gen 8 will appear in some shape or form. With that being said, let's move on to number 5, which is Salazzle. For the design, I think Salazzle is kind of lackluster compared to the inspiration behind the Pokemon. Now, thanks to the YouTuber Loxton, I know that the inspiration behind Salazzle is the Mo'o, which is a Hawaiian myth. And though their design does kind of summarize what they are based on, I think we could take that and go above and beyond by making Mega Salazzle look a tad bit more humanoid. Not in a literal sense, but similar to how Mega Lopunny looks humanoid. And personally, I think an interesting idea would be to make her limbs a tiny bit longer and give her a dress that is made out of fire. And the particular dress that I am thinking of is similar to Fantina's dress, so it kind of conceals the tail. And my thought process for it is mainly since the beings they are based off of would shapeshift into women. So I think that going into the flip side of their inspiration for the Mega Evolution design would be an interesting concept. Next up is number 4, which I'm sure some people wouldn't be happy with if it ended up happening, but I think a Mega Mimikyu would be a fun idea to play with. Honestly, as much as I love the mystery behind the Pokemon, I am also extremely curious what is under that adorable little disguise. And I think a Mega Evolution for it would be a great way to show us what the terrifying creature actually looks like. Number 3. Now, since most pseudo-legendaries at this point have a Mega Evolution, I think the next one to get a Mega Evolution should be Hydreigon. Now, when I first saw this Pokemon back when Black and White came out, my immediate thought was that it's based off of King Ghidorah from the Godzilla franchise, and mixed in a tiny bit with the Hydra from Marvel, Greek mythology. I think it would be an interesting concept if Mega Hydreigon could be more of a resemblance to King Ghidorah, and even take an additional step forward by giving it legs, and additional features so it looks way different from its normal form. And a slightly different alternate take from that would be making it look more like Mecha King Ghidorah by giving it more metallic features and dropping that dark typing for steel, so that it can become a true rival to the Godzilla inspired Tyranitar. Now, alternatively, they could also make it look more like the Hydra by again giving it legs, as well as a few more heads that look identical to the main one, so there are more than just one intelligent head on this Pokemon. And they could even show personality with every single head. For example, one could be the alpha out of all of them, and one could even be the runt of the group, like in most pop culture iterations of a creature with multiple heads. Moving on to number 2, which is Crocodile. Similar to how with Luxray I took ideas from the Extinct inspiration of their design, with my favorite Gen 5 Pokemon, I'm going to do the same. So, one of the inspirations behind this Pokemon is the Spinosaurus. And honestly, I really think that there should be more Pokemon that are inspired by dinosaurs outside of fossil Pokemon. If I'm being honest, Crocodile is already 80% of the way to a Spinosaurus. Just give it spines on its back and some bigger proportions, well, everywhere, and boom, you have that dinosaur. And since Tyrantrum is literally a T-Rex, I don't think that it's that big of a stretch. And if you want my honest opinion, since Tyrantrum is the only straight up dinosaur Pokemon that doesn't have an additional gimmick and it has dragon, I think it's only fair to give Mega Crocodile a dragon type. Now, moving on to honorable mentions. I really wanted to bring in some Gen 8 Pokemon, but honestly, I couldn't think of anything that was that interesting. But anyways, here's some more Pokemon that I think really deserve Mega Evolutions. Appletun and Flapple, because let's be honest, they both got robbed with their Gmax form. Next up is Toxtricity. Despite that its Gmax form is amazing, I think having an individual Mega Evolution for both the high key and low key form would be a lot better for it. And lastly is Galarian Slowbro. I honestly hate Slowbro's Mega, so I think that making one for its Galarian counterpart could be the redemption for it. Now, finally, for the number 1 spot, if you haven't already guessed it, it's Primal Dialga, Primal Palkia, and Mega Giratina. I don't know about you, but I've been seeing people scream about the primal forms of these two since the release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And if we're bringing Megas back and these two didn't get their own primal forms, I feel like that would be a huge missed opportunity, especially since this is the perfect chance to bring back the beloved Primal Dialga form from the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series. And they could even make some additional designs to it as well to make it a little bit more unique. And now, in the case of Giratina, I would be really interested to see if they even attempt to do anything with it, given how it already has 2 forms that it needs to hold an item for. Or maybe they could make the Gracious Orb have a double use. But anyways, let me know what you think. Now, if you've gotten this far in the video, I just want to thank you for watching, and let me know what Pokemon you think should get Mega Evolutions in the Gen 4 remakes. And as always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate any and all of the support, you guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.